Thanks for being here. Subscribe to Cheating Stories Best, so you don't miss new stories. A husband sent a climactic message to his lover from his wife's phone, but what happened in the end? Today's story with a similar plot. Enjoy watching it. The sky outside was gray and gloomy, making the room still dark even though morning had long arrived. I had spent the last 2 months in a country cottage, working on my book, and I needed the quiet and tranquility to concentrate. My desk with a laptop was positioned almost in front of the window, usually well lit by the daylight. But not on this day when the weather decided to show its grumpy side and hid the sun behind thick black clouds. However, it didn't bother me much. I brewed myself a fragrant cup of coffee to boost my spirits and mood, set up my workspace with an ashtray and a pack of cigarettes on the table, placed a cup nearby, and turned on the laptop. While it was booting up, I glanced out the window and observed the surrounding nature. The lush greenery and the occasional appearance of a raccoon somehow inspired me. I checked the clock. I had about half an hour until my daily call with my wife, and I decided I'd wait to talk to her first before I started writing. But on this day, the call came earlier than usual. Just as I was about to take my first sip of coffee, the phone rang, forcing me to interrupt my morning ritual. When I answered the phone, Donna, my wife, was speaking quickly and loudly, almost incoherently, and I had just woken up, so I couldn't make out anything. Wait, hold on. What are you rambling about? Slow down. What happened? I asked her. Harry, I just can't. Sabrina, she's sick, very sick. You need to come. We're already at the hospital. Oh, my God. What happened to her? Is she okay? She has a high fever and is nauseous. I don't know. The doctor is examining her right now. Okay. Calm down. Of course, I'll come. I'm on my way. I hung up the phone and began to get ready. I had to put my book on hold. My daughter's health was more important. Closing the laptop, I quickly changed clothes and soon found myself driving on the dirt road leading to the highway. I tried to go as fast as possible, but a dense fog descended once I reached the outskirts of the city, making my journey a bit more challenging. Furthermore, as I turned onto the main road, which was often busy with traffic, I had to be more attentive to avoid colliding with other vehicles. In the city, it seemed to be smoother sailing, with only occasional stops at traffic lights. Nevertheless, I arrived at the required hospital fairly quickly. Upon entering the building, I dialed my wife's number again to clarify their location and, receiving her response, rushed to join them. How is she? Do we know anything yet? I asked, visibly concerned and out of breath. Oh, Harry, Donna clung to me, filled with despair. I'm so worried. She stepped back. The test results should be out soon, but the doctor said it's a severe poisoning. I can't even understand what could have caused it. There's nothing in the house that could trigger such a reaction. Let's go to her room. Is she in the ward? Let's go. Did she say anything? Nothing. Here. You can ask her yourself. I approached my daughter, lying in her bed in a semi-delirious state. She was a bit pale, her face covered in sweat droplets due to the high temperature. Sabrina, sweetie, how are you feeling? Dad, she whimpered. Dad, my stomach, it hurts so much. I didn't press her further and turned to my wife. What could she have eaten? I told you. I don't know. Maybe she had her own chips, I don't know. Okay. Let's wait until she feels better, and then we'll ask. Oh, isn't that the doctor coming towards us? I noticed a man in a white coat walking in our direction, examining something on his tablet. Yes, that's the doctor who examined her, Donna replied. I wanted to go meet the doctor, but he had almost reached us already. He realized I was her father and told us that our daughter indeed had food poisoning. They had already administered the necessary medication, and she should start feeling better soon. Donna and I stayed in the room, waiting for our daughter to recover a bit. I went out a couple of times to smoke and brought some coffee for myself and my wife. A little later, Sabrina started feeling better and explained to us that she had only eaten some chicken she found in the refrigerator. She had a sudden craving for it in the middle of the night. She admitted that the taste seemed a bit off, but she was so hungry that she ate a decent portion with relish. By morning, she had severe stomach pains. Of course, she didn't immediately tell her mother, thinking it would pass, but it only got worse. We were extremely worried for her, and we decided not to scold her for her impulsive actions. Meanwhile, I was silently contemplating how this could have happened and why Donna might have been so preoccupied that she didn't check the food for freshness. But I didn't want to express my displeasure to her while our daughter was present. However, I decided to talk to her about it later when we were alone. We spent the day at the hospital until evening. When our daughter felt significantly better and the doctor allowed us to take her home, we all left together. I asked Sabrina to go to her room and rest in bed until she felt completely well. Donna took it upon herself to cook fresh chicken soup. When we were alone in the kitchen, I finally expressed my thoughts. First, I opened the refrigerator and immediately detected an unpleasant odor. What are you going on here? Couldn't you have cleaned up the refrigerator? What were you even doing here for things to escalate like this? I questioned my wife, clearly irritated. What do you mean? I don't know what happened. I only cooked the chicken yesterday, and I have no idea why it spoiled so quickly. And, seriously, why are you jumping down my throat? While you were enjoying yourself at the country cottage, I had to take care of everything by myself, Donna responded, her tone growing defensive. Oh, don't play the victim. What's so difficult for you to do here? Most of it is automated, you just press buttons. And you know how important my work is to me. When you come home, you watch your shows or chat with your friends on the phone, and it's impossible to concentrate on my writing. Besides, you came to visit me for the weekend. What are you so tired of? Watching TV? I retorted. You can be such in fifth place sometimes, Harry. If it weren't for our daughter, I would. Donna began, but suddenly stopped. What? What would you do? Tell me since you brought it up. Never mind. Sometimes you just drive me crazy. That's it. You could be a bit more caring and attentive. All your love seems to be reserved for those damn books. You're saying nonsense right now. Hey, why are you fighting in here? Our daughter suddenly entered the kitchen. Oh, sweetheart, are you up already? Do you need to rest a bit longer? My wife quickly changed the subject. But Mom, I feel better already. Why don't you tell me what's left to eat? I'm hungry again. I've been in the hospital all day. Yeah, sure. The broth will be ready soon. Wait a little longer. How's your stomach? Doesn't it hurt anymore? Didn't I say I was better? What's with all the stupid questions? Dad, I'm glad you're here. I missed you so much. How much longer do you have to work? Well, it will actually take some time. The publisher asked me not to delay with my new book. They're almost ready to print it. Why don't you tell me about your school and how you're doing in your support group? I decided to distract my daughter a little while she waited for dinner. She was eager to tell me what was going on at school and to brag about her progress. But while I was listening to her, I was at the same time wondering why Donna's personality had changed lately. She's been a little more nervous lately. Could it really be because I've been away from home for so long? But I'd been away for an indefinite period of time to work on a book before, and it hadn't affected her behavior. I called my boyfriend, and he should be here soon. I hope you don't mind him visiting me, our daughter asked. Of course not, I replied. Aaron had always been polite and left a good impression. Sabrina had been dating him for several months. As parents, we naturally worried about her, but we understood that at 16, she had the right to her personal relationships. We trusted her, especially since she had never given us any reason to doubt her. Furthermore, Aaron came from a respectable family. His father worked at her school teaching history, and his mother worked alongside my wife at a private design firm. Having had dinner before her boyfriend's arrival, Sabrina went to her room to freshen up and asked us to call her when Aaron arrived. Once she left, I wanted to continue our conversation, but once again, we were interrupted, this time by a phone call. Ahead of Donna, I picked up the home phone and answered it. A male voice on the other end politely greeted me and asked to speak to Donna. I became curious about who would be calling her at this hour with a voice I didn't recognize. When I inquired who was calling and why at this late hour, He explained that he was her colleague and needed to discuss the schedule for tomorrow. His answer satisfied me, and I called Donna over to the phone. "Yes, I'm listening," I heard her say as I sat at the table, sipping my tea and eavesdropping on our conversation. It wasn't that I didn't trust her, I was just genuinely curious who this colleague was and why she seemed to be keeping something from me. Yes. I don't know, she continued, speaking in vague terms. But how? I don't know if I can. Okay, I'll figure something out, she said and hung up. Who was that? I asked when she returned to the table. Oh, that was John. He works at our firm. What did he want? Oh, nothing special, she hesitated. He asked if I could help him with a project tomorrow. What's the big deal then? Nothing, really. It's just that I'll have to stay a bit late at work. I can't do anything else until my work hours are over. I already took the day off today because of Sabrina being sick, and tomorrow, I have to catch up on my own work as well. I'm not even sure how I'll manage everything. Why do you want to help someone when you're already overwhelmed? Oh, Harry, don't complicate things. Everything is just so complicated. Lately, work has been really busy. Now you've gone back to your writing den. Sabrina's school vacation is coming up, maybe you can take her with you? It would make things a bit easier for me. I couldn't understand why she was trying to paint herself as a victim of circumstances. From my perspective, nothing significant had changed in her life. I promised to think about it, but decided to stay home for a few days. Donna began to gather the dishes and put them in the dishwasher. I finished my tea and wandered my gaze around the kitchen. I even thought I'd forgotten some of the details the little while I'd been away. When my gaze reached the refrigerator, I noticed a small puddle had formed underneath it. Leaving my cup behind, I approached the fridge and squatted down to take a closer look. It was indeed leaking. I realized it might be malfunctioning, causing our food to spoil. Hey, do we have the repairman's contact numbers? I asked my wife. They should be in the directory. Why? It seems like the fridge is malfunctioning. I'll go look for it. In the meantime, you can throw away anything that has gone bad. The last thing we need is someone else falling ill. I quickly arranged for someone to come and check our fridge, and when I finished the call, the doorbell rang. Since I was closer to the entrance, I went to answer it. Aaron stood there, patiently waiting for us to let him in. Hello, Mr. White. I'm here to see Sabrina. Can I come in? Of course. Come on in, Aaron. She's in her room. I let Aaron in, and he immediately headed upstairs to see his girlfriend. I returned to the kitchen to see how things were progressing. While my wife and I were busy saving the remaining food, I came to the conclusion that, as much as I wished to continue writing my book, I would have to put it on hold for some time. In the morning, I had suspected nothing and hoped that my tranquility would not be disturbed, but now events began to fall one after another. Having finished in the kitchen, I decided to take a shower before bed and tried not to think about anything. My only goal was to get through this day as quickly as possible. After my shower, I checked the time and noticed that it was time for Aaron to go home. Sabrina also needed to get some rest and gather her strength for school. I went to check her room and, before entering, I quietly knocked. But there was no response, so I opened the door. Sabrina was already in bed, seemingly asleep, and Aaron was nowhere to be found. I thought he had already left and closed the door again. But I suddenly felt thirsty and went down to the kitchen. I also wanted to find out from Donna why she was still awake. As I approached the kitchen, I heard whispers coming from inside. Donna was having a quiet conversation with someone. I listened and realized that she was discussing something with Aaron. I thought it was strange that they were talking so quietly, and I wanted to know what it was about. For a moment I had the horrible thought that Sabrina might be pregnant by him, and they were trying to work it out without involving me, because Donna knew very well how violently and negatively I might react, because I was worried about my daughter, and I didn't want her to have that kind of problem at such an early age. But as I got closer and hid behind the wall to overhear them, I realized that it wasn't about the daughter at all. They were discussing that something was very important to keep secret from everyone, both Sabrina and me, because it could upset both of us very badly, and Donna wanted to keep our family together no matter what. I looked over and saw that they were sitting at the table and my wife was holding the guy's hand. The scene I saw, along with what I had heard, left me extremely confused and angry as I assumed that Donna was having some sort of secret relationship with this young man. I entered the kitchen with a stern expression and immediately addressed them with an angry tone. I wanted to know what they were hiding from me. When Donna saw me, she quickly pulled her hand away from Aaron and stared at me in fear. Aaron even jumped up from his chair, clearly startled. "What's going on here? Do I need to know something?" I asked. "Oh, no, Harry. What are you talking about?" "We were just talking," my wife rushed to reassure me. "Yeah? What kind of conversation requires whispering in private on the kitchen? You thought I had already gone to bed? What about you?" I turned to Aaron. "Why are you suddenly so silent? You were quite talkative just a moment ago. Both of you, answer me. What are you hiding from me?" "I think I should go," Aaron replied timidly. "Sit down. The conversation is not over," I said. I knew I was starting to get angry. Over the years, I had always tried to remain calm and not show aggression, not only because I had a family, but also because I remembered the times when I served in the army and was sent to the East for a real war. There, I had to fight enemies and serve my country for a long time. I witnessed and experienced many grim events, including death, killing, and burying comrades. After returning, I didn't want anything like that to ever happen in my life again. I retired from the military and chose a path of peaceful life, far from hatred and malice. Until now, I had managed to keep my emotions in check. "Sit down," I repeated when Aaron still stood in place, afraid to make a move. When he finally sat, I continued, "So, someone is going to explain to me what's happening here?" Donna looked at me with alarm and tried to find the right words to respond. "Harry, we were just talking. It's just that Aaron, She looked at him, hoping he'd support her in the conversation. "He's just started dating another girl and doesn't know how to explain it to Sabrina." "Right, Aaron?" "Well, yeah." Aaron started to stammer, unsure whether to confirm my wife's words or deny them. "Well, speak up. What's got you tongue-tied?" I thought he was afraid of me, not just because of my intimidating tone, but also because I had retired from the army but continued to work out at the gym, keeping my muscles in excellent shape, which maintained my athletic appearance. Well, I guess so," he replied hesitantly. "I don't know how to tell Sabrina about it. We had already agreed to go to the prom together. Damn it. I leave home for a short while, and all hell breaks loose. You, kid, have disappointed me greatly. Did you really think I'd let you treat my daughter like that?" "I'm sorry, sir. It just happened. I should probably go." He looked at Donna, hoping she would stand up for him, but she was silent, glancing back and forth at him and me. "You sucker." I got up from the table and walked over to him, grabbing his collar with one hand. "Get out. I don't ever want to see you near my daughter again. Don't you dare come within a kilometer of her. Do you understand me?" I made an effort and pulled him from behind the desk and pushed him toward the door. The guy was startled and rushed out, and soon enough I heard the front door close behind him. After he was gone, I turned to my wife and now demanded an explanation from her. "Well, tell me, how come our daughter got caught up in such a story? Can't you be trusted to raise her? Why do you ask me? They're still young. These things happen at their age. It's no big deal if they'll break up. She'll find someone else worthy of her time. When did you start eavesdropping?" "I was actually trying to reconcile them. But now you've ruined it. He told me he still loved our daughter and he was just asking me for advice. And now you're here, with your little attitude. You dare to blame me for everything? You could have just told me right away. We could have found a way out together." "Yes. You already showed him a way out," Donna replied sarcastically. I sat down at the table, wondering if I'd done the right thing, if I'd been hasty. But the moment I overheard them, it seemed to me that they were talking about themselves, about their relationship. God, what a fool I was, thinking that my wife and this guy. After all, he's still so young. What could he have with my wife? Now I blamed myself for being rude to this guy, Although if we take into account that he really found someone else, then maybe not for nothing. Anyway, I was glad that this unpleasant conversation was over. Now all I had to do was tell Sabrina about it all. I didn't know how she would take the news from us and not from her boyfriend. For the morning, Donna was getting ready for work and my daughter was getting ready to go to school. All three of us hardly spoke at all. Donna and I just didn't know how to start conversation, or if she should talk about it yet. And my daughter didn't even ask us why we were acting the way we were, as if she already knew. We didn't make up our minds. My daughter went to school, and I intended to find the right words to tell her what I'd learned before she got back. The day was not completely boring. I waited for the repairman. He examined the refrigerator and gave me an impressive sum for the repair. I thought that it would be easier to buy a new one, but since he said that he had the necessary parts with him, and also that the warranty period of the refrigerator had not yet expired and he could make a decent discount, I agreed, and he worked in our kitchen for about an hour. And then, I was left alone, and since I still had time, I decided to do some work on the book. Taking out my laptop, I took a position in the living room where I was very comfortable, and when the page opened, I read the last few paragraphs to get my mind flowing again, and started typing away. I had a brilliant idea of how to continue my novel, and I found the right text for it, but as soon as I typed the first sentence, someone rang the doorbell again. Who was it this time? I cursed, and decided to stay put for the time being, hoping that whoever came would think there was no one home and go on his way. But the doorbell kept ringing, and after the sixth, I went to open the door, cursing the late visitor on the way. Opening the door, I was a bit surprised because I didn't think I'd ever see this person again. Standing at the doorstep was my former comrade with whom we once ventured into a hot zone together. The last time I saw him, we came under fire. Many perished, and Brandon went missing. Everyone assumed he, like the others, had simply perished. Can't be. Brandon? Is that really you? I melted with emotions. Yeah. Hi, Harry. It's been a while. But how did you? I thought you were gone. In fact, everyone did. Many were never found. Come in, and tell me everything. He told me that he had been captured and held prisoner for a long time until he managed to escape miraculously. But since he had been associated with an unpleasant company before serving in the army and owed those people a lot of money, he decided to remain listed as dead so that no one would look for him. He moved to Canada, where he had been living all these years, taking a new name and identity. Eventually, he saw a book with my name on a shelf. We had become friends during our service, which he remembered, prompting him to pay me a visit. But how did you find me? I don't live at the old address anymore, I asked. Well, I had some connections. I inquired and got your address. I've been in the city for about a month now. I actually came here once before, but a woman, I assume your wife, answered the door and said you'd be away for a while. Yesterday, I saw you leaving the hospital by chance. Is that your family? He saw a photo on the shelf of me with my wife and daughter, recognizing the people I left the hospital with. Yes, my wife and daughter. She's grown up now. So, why didn't you come yesterday when you saw me? You could have just come to the hospital. I just didn't want to bother you. I understood that something serious was going on. I decided to wait until the next day. It's nothing serious. Just a minor stomachache for my daughter. Everything's fine. But why are we only talking about me? Tell me about your life. Do you have a family? How long are you planning to stay here? He launched into the story of his life again, occasionally diving into details, explaining that he had met a nice girl in Canada and had eventually married her. However, a few years later, she had been in an accident and died. Since then, he hadn't pursued any serious relationships, only having short-lived romances which he would end himself. His story saddened me a bit, but he didn't seem sad. In fact, he appeared quite lively and optimistic. He spent a couple of hours at my place, sharing moments from our lives. I repeated several times how glad I was that he was still alive and had come to meet me. When I asked him why he hadn't reached out earlier, he explained that initially, he was simply hiding, and then he got caught up in his new life and just forgot about everyone. It was only my book that reminded him of the friendship we once had. Then we said our goodbyes, and I stayed home, feeling elated. I couldn't wait to share the joyful news with my wife. I didn't want to call her, it wouldn't sound the same over the phone. Soon, my daughter arrived. She noticed my elevated mood and asked what had happened. I answered her what had happened to me during the day, but she didn't seem to care. Did something happen to you, daughter? Yes. Something's happened. Aaron. He's just avoiding me, he won't even talk to me. What happened yesterday? When he left me, he was fine. Sabrina gave me a piercing stare, and then I remembered yesterday's unpleasant conversation with her boyfriend. Sabrina, daughter. Sit down. I'd like to talk to you. The thing is, I didn't know where to start. Yeah, we've talked to her before, about her growing up. But how do I tell her that her boyfriend decided to dump her? It was harder for me than I thought, and I regretted not letting Aaron near her. Maybe it would have been better if he'd confessed to her himself. Speak up, Dad. Why are you so quiet? What happened? Daughter, I didn't want to tell you like this. It's just something Aaron told us yesterday. He just didn't know how to tell you about it, so he asked that mom and I explained it to you. What the hell happened? What are you stalling for? When did you start fighting? Don't change the subject. Just tell me. What happened yesterday? I let out a heavy sigh and told my daughter about yesterday's conversation. As I expected, she was very upset. She fell silent at first, then burst into tears and started to blame me. I didn't scold her for it, as I understood her feelings. But it was a relief to have been able to talk to her, and the hardest part was now behind us. However, I had no idea how wrong I was in my expectations. You're saying such things about Aaron. Where did you even get that idea? He couldn't have. He simply couldn't. People must have spread rumors about him, she said. Daughter, I understand that it's difficult for you to accept this right now. But time will pass, and you'll forget about him, like a bad memory. You'll see, I replied. You just don't listen to me. I'm telling you, he's not to blame. I'm sorry, Dad. I didn't want you to find out, but Mom is keeping something from you. You should talk to her about it. Leave Aaron alone. What are you talking about? I realized it wasn't as simple as it seemed. Don't ask me about anything else. You're all just self-centered egotists here, and everyone thinks only of themselves. Leave me alone. Sabrina, crying again, ran to her room. I wanted to catch up with her and try to talk to her again, but when I approached her room, loud music was playing inside, and the door was locked from the inside. I realized that I wouldn't get anything from her at the moment, so I left her alone. Now I was eagerly awaiting Donna's return home to find out from her all the details that our daughter hadn't shared with me. What she was hiding from me and why our daughter was so angry with both of us. I even called my wife at work and asked her not to delay coming home today. To make sure she agreed, I told her that there was a surprise waiting for her at home. Donna came home in the evening, unaware of what I was going to ask her, but she sensed from my mood that I wanted to talk about something serious. And while I was waiting for her, so as not to waste time, I went and found Aaron. The guy wanted to run away when he saw me, but I asked him to listen to me, and when he agreed to talk, I apologized, saying I was wrong, and asked him to go back to Sabrina. Thankfully, he believed in my sincerity, and called her right away. Sabrina seemed to have a positive attitude towards him, and they made up almost immediately. He and I drove home together. Sabrina went out with him, saying only that it would be late. She didn't want to talk to me about anything else because she was still hurt. I waited for my wife and invited her into the living room for a conversation. She didn't know what I was going to ask, but she could tell from my mood that I wanted to tell her something serious. Did something happen? Is everything okay with Sabrina? She asked anxiously. Everything's fine with her. But with you, it seems not. I've learned something. Now, I want you to confess everything to me, or this conversation won't be as pleasant as it is now. Tell me, who are you having an affair with, and for how long? Donna lowered her eyes guiltily, and I realized that my question had been the right one, though I had asked it, deliberately, only because I had hoped to hear some truthful revelation from my wife, but I'd never expected her to be capable of such a thing. I sat down in the chair across from her as I realized what my daughter was implying. So she knew everything. and I was the only one who'd been walking around like a fool while I was being hornswoggled. In an instant, I felt confusion, resentment, anger, and frustration. Because of all these abruptly mixed feelings, I did not know what to say at the moment. I needed some time to digest the truth of what was happening. I looked at my wife, who was still sitting there looking guilty. And that's when it hit me. So it's true? Yesterday you decided to take it out on Aaron, who turned out to be innocent, while you make a friction behind my back. I didn't expect that from you. Who is he? Harry. Look, I understand how you feel. You don't understand. I shouted and even got up from my chair. How dare you even talk about feelings? Who is he? I'm asking, who is he? Harry. Are you so sure that Aaron is innocent? But how do you know that? Did he tell you that? To get to Sabrina again? To trick her into thinking he's all sweet and fluffy? I don't get it. What are you talking about now? And anyway, who told you I was? Oh, don't tell me, though. Sabrina. It's definitely her. The little rascal. I told her to keep quiet. I jumped up at one point and slapped my wife hard. How dare you talk about your daughter like that? Yes, because she saw me with Dustin. That's why. I remember that Brandon called himself Dustin. He told me he'd taken that name. But I still didn't believe it, because he'd just arrived, and he wasn't the only Dustin in town. Who is Dustin? I grabbed her arm, hard enough to get her to confess right away instead of blabbering. Tell me, please. Tell it like it is. Let go. It hurts. She tried to release her hand, but I wouldn't let go and just kept staring at her angrily, waiting for answers. Now I was confused myself, but I realized that it was actually a lot more confusing than I had previously thought. Dustin. You know him. He came looking for you. That's how we met him. He told me he was an old friend of yours and he was just in town. I only invited him for tea as your friend, but he had wine with him. He offered to drink it. Well, then everything happened. She lowered her eyes guiltily again. I'm sorry, Harry. But you've been away so long. I got lonely. Sabrina was spending the night at a friend's house at the time, though I'm guessing she was with Aaron. You're not talking to me. Tell me everything. That's what I'm saying, she continued in a sad voice. It just all happened so quickly and unexpectedly. I didn't even realize how he stayed until the morning, and then Sabrina came in and... Oh, what a creature! How could you do that? How old are you? You expect me to believe it was an accident? How dare you? I let go of her and stepped aside. So many betrayals and lies came at me in one moment that I was just buckling under the weight. A man I had always considered a friend had just molested my wife. And then he came to visit me, but not just to see me, because we hadn't seen each other for a long time. He wanted to look into the eyes of the idiot he had so cleverly deceived. But why did he do it? Thoughts and questions swirled frantically in my head, while I carefully tried to piece things together. I questioned my wife again, and she said that they saw each other a few more times after that, but on purpose. She just really liked the way he was a lover, and how he whispered all sorts of tenderness to her. As I listened to her, I just wanted to tear her in half. Grab her legs and tear her in half. But what good would that do me? Even if I beat her, my daughter would probably just turn her back on me even more, even though she was angry at her mother, but Donna was still her mother. I needed to think, to come to terms with this shocking news. But I had one more question. You were talking about Aaron. That he was guilty of something. What was it? I need to know. You won't like what I have to say. Say it. How many times? This house is already flooded with lies. I could feel myself starting to lose my temper again. I take it our marriage is over. She looked at me like it was a foregone conclusion. Just say it. Well, anyway, with him too. I sat up from what I heard. When she said it, it was like the sky had fallen in on me. How is that possible? Her and him? Even though it had crossed my mind yesterday. But somewhere in the back of my mind, I hoped it was just a bad fantasy from the fact that I was just jealous of her seeing her touch him. Donna got up and walked over to me. Taking a seat next to me, she took my hand and wanted to say something else, but I was so angry that I pushed her away without even looking. I didn't want to hear or see her anymore. It was as if I was starting to sink back into my gloomy thoughts, but a thud next to me made me turn around. I saw that Donna was lying on the floor, then I noticed that the sharp corner of the table beside her was red with blood. It looked like I had pushed her so hard that she fell and hit her head on the table. I rushed over to her and lifted her head. Blood was oozing from her temple and Donna was unconscious. Donna. Oh, my God. What have I done? I put my ear to her face and hoped for a miracle. Soon I heard faint breathing, but just to be safe, I still checked the pulse on her neck and made sure she was alive. Yes, I was angry with her, and very angry. But I didn't want to kill her. I'd had enough killing in the past when I was in the service. And now I was even berating myself for wishing she was gone just a short time ago. I picked my wife up off the floor and sat her gently in the chair. Then I called the ambulance and reported the accident. While they were on their way, I wiped the blood off the corner of the table. I don't know why I did it, maybe because I didn't want my daughter to see it when she came in. And soon I was on my way to the hospital with her. And we were back in the same hospital where we had been yesterday, only this time the victim was my wife. I was with her the whole time she was being transported, and then waited for her to undergo the appropriate manipulations to bring her back to normal. But in all that time, I never once regretted what had happened. It was like I was back to being the emotionless person I was when I had to shoot people. I only felt sorry for my daughter, who had been so deceived by the two people she cared about. But I wasn't going to tell her anything more about her boyfriend. Now I was determined to deal with him myself. When Donna came to, I was sitting next to her in a chair. She looked up and tried to say something, but all she could manage was a weak mumble. "What? Your head hurts. And when you went to bed with other men, didn't you get a headache?" I still felt hatred and contempt for her. "What were you thinking? If you were so desperate for intimate, you could have just told me. I wouldn't have gone anywhere, I'd have stayed with you. And I would have taken care of the book somehow. But you ruined it for me. I would like to apologize." She finally mumbled. "Apologize? Do you think I'll forgive you after everything you've done?" "Not to you. To our daughter," Donna said with a groan. Holy shit. I was extremely shocked by her request. "You betrayed me like that and humiliated my dignity, and now you don't even try to apologize to me? What kind of creature are you?" She just stared at me, and it seemed like she had no conscience left. I understood that life had its ups and downs, but I never could have imagined this happening in our family. For all those years, we had lived happily, always trusting and supporting each other, Sabrina, whom we both taught to value family and trust above all. Now, I looked at my wife and realized she was no longer my family. With her actions, she had shattered everything we had, and I no longer felt any positive emotions toward her. I felt only disgust. The fact that she didn't even regret betraying my love awakened something I had buried deep within me. I sat and looked at her, but I didn't see a wife. I saw an enemy, one we had fought off years ago, and I felt the same emotions. Subconsciously, it made me reach for the forward drip control and tighten it. I saw an outlet behind the nightstand powering the monitor, so I reached for it and unplugged it to avoid drawing attention to the beeping. Donna felt it getting hard to breathe and struggled to call for help. She continued to look at me, in agony, and I had no sympathy left for her. I was tired of waiting for her to stop breathing, so I gently removed the pillow from under her head and used it to cover her face. Her weakened state allowed me to do this quickly and silently. When it was done, I put the pillow back in place, reattached the floor as it was before, and coiled the monitor's cord around a chair leg, making it appear as if it had accidentally come unplugged. I left the room while no one was around and went home. One traitor was dealt with. Now, there were two more I had to address, and they needed to be punished as they deserved. Aaron would be relatively easier to deal with. I waited until the next day to exact my revenge on him. I already knew where he lived, and my past skills allowed me to sneak into his home unnoticed. Before that, I visited a spot to acquire a sufficient amount of pills, which I then planted in Aaron's room. I made an anonymous call to the police about it. I had no remorse for him either. What was regrettable was that Sabrina was deeply hurt when she found out he was involved with pills because she had always been against them. When he started denying it, she thought he had been deceiving her all this time and permanently severed ties with him. She was also upset because she had learned late the previous night that the hospital had reported her mother's sudden death. I hugged my little girl and assured her that things would get better. Despite the losses, we were still a family, and I would never abandon her. Once my daughter had calmed down a bit, I began to contemplate how to deal with the last traitor. This would be more challenging. Firstly, I didn't know where to find him, and secondly, he was not stupid enough to let me catch him and get himself killed. After we served together in the same unit, we both received similar training. What he did after he disappeared was only a matter of speculation. However, I didn't lose hope, and my hatred served as a motivating force to carry out my plan. An idea crossed my mind. I retrieved my wife's phone, and I was not mistaken when I looked for the traitor's number there. I hoped he still didn't know she was no longer alive, so I sent him a message in her name. I read their previous conversations and realized they typically arranged meetings. I did the same this time. I arranged to meet him at a motel outside of town and added that a pleasant surprise awaited him. I instructed him not to attempt any contact until the meeting. The meeting was scheduled for that evening. I retrieved a pistol with a silencer from the safe, which I had acquired a long time ago, just in case. It was unregistered, and I was now grateful for listening to the seller's advice at the time of purchase. Armed and prepared, I arrived at the meeting place early. Parking my car a distance away, I settled into the motel room, waiting for Brandon. When he entered the room, it was dark, with only a faint night lamp from the bathroom casting a thin beam of light through the door crack and the light from street lamps seeping through the curtains. I crouched in a corner on a chair, silently observing Brandon's silhouette frozen in place. He reached for the light switch and flicked it several times. When he realized it wasn't working, he closed the door and took a few steps. "Donna, what's this surprise? Are you up for a game of hide and seek? It's quite amusing for you to come up with this," he continued. I turned on the flashlight and shined it directly into Brandon's face. The sudden light made him cover his eyes with his hand, but he was trying to see who was messing with him. "Donna, this isn't funny anymore," he said. I got up and started to walk toward him, and when he was only a couple steps away, I lit up my face and spoke to him. "You didn't guess. You like to play? Well, let's play." Brandon realized it was me and decided to be the first to attack. He must have understood why I was here and what I intended to do with him. However, he didn't want to let that happen. As we grappled and blindly threw punches at each other in the dimly lit room, illuminated only by a small flashlight lying on the floor, each of us was determined to prevail. We fought and wrestled, but neither of us was willing to leave the room or stop. We were both ready to see it through. It was only when I managed to grab him, my hand clutching his throat, that I was prepared to finish him off, even without using a weapon. However, I didn't want to take his life until I got an answer to my question about why he had treated me this way or if it had really been an accidental love. I pressed him against the wall and asked. Brandon told me that he had planned this for a long time and had been searching for me for a while. He explained that the reason for his actions was that all these years, he had believed that when we were caught in the crossfire and he was wounded, I had simply left him there to die and walked away with the others. He also said that after meeting me, he realized he had been wrong and was ready to atone for his guilt. But I could no longer forgive him because the beast within me, awakened, showed no mercy. I pulled out a gun and held it to Brandon's chin. He began to plead for his life, saying he didn't want to die. "But you've been dead for a long time," I told him and pulled the trigger. The deserted hotel and the cover of night allowed me to discreetly remove his body, load it into the trunk, and bury it outside the city where nobody would ever search for it. I returned home, my daughter already asleep, and went into the bathroom to wash away all the dirt that had clung to me over the past few days. What do you think of our story today? In my opinion, my husband did the right thing, and every normal man would have done the same. What do you think of our story today? Write in the comments. See you in the next video.